Hello, welcome to STL. We are the podcast for 3D printing, digital manufacturing, everything in that realm. To my right, we have Ryan.
Hello.
Joining us today, we have Justin. I'm Scott, and this is Ryan, or Bass, as we also call him. Tonight, we're going to talk about a whole bunch of different stuff. First up, we have some of the projects that we've been working on here at Arch Reactor's Hackerspace. Probably the first one to go up is the NaOH, or sodium hydroxide. We have been trying to figure out how to do the same acetone process that you use with ABS for when you do 3D prints. And some of the folks have been saying that if you use sodium hydroxide and you vaporize it through the same methods that you would with acetone, you can get similar effects on PLA as you would with acetone and ABS. So we said, what the hell? And we decided to try and make some. And it's a pretty simple process. It's, you want to explain?
Sure.
Real quick?
So you take really crappy table salt that doesn't have any iodine in it, and then you dissolve that in warm water until the mixture becomes very cloudy. After that, you do electrolysis, and then that breaks off the sodium from the salt and off-gases the chlorine, which means you have to do it either outside or under a vent hood. So we built a vent hood in the dirty shop and vented the resulting chlorine outside.
One of the other things too is that for the electrodes, a very simple way that we tried to use was graphite. And all I did was I got some cheapo pencils and I soaked them in water until they split in half, and we took the graphite out and used those when we attached the electrodes.
Yeah, okay.
You have to add zinc to the mixture as well.
Yeah,
So
definitely. If you don't have any sort of membrane to separate out to get sodium hydroxide, you'll end up with sodium hypochlorite, or hypochlorite, or I forget. But if you don't have that membrane in there, that happens. So you stick the zinc in there, and that takes another oxygen out of the picture, and you end up with zinc oxide, sodium hydroxide, and chlorine gas, all in the same thing. And then once you do that, you let everything settle out. You can just take that mixture and decant off the liquid, or you could stir it up and pour it through a coffee filter and a funnel.
And the easiest way to actually find a source of zinc is probably either in your couch or maybe even your pocket. And that would be, you strip the copper off of a penny.
It has to be a newer penny.
And with the newer pennies, the crappy pennies, it's copper-plated zinc. So on the interior, you will have your zinc that you need. Either that, or you can actually go out to a scrapyard and try and find a hunk of zinc. And you never know, they could actually have some. I'm sure if we went down to Shapiro's, which is our local scrapyard that we all love to go and just play, I'm sure we could actually probably find a big old hunk of zinc that we could use.
Probably. And then also there's always your local hobby shop. They'll have something.
So that's enough about the process. As Ryan said, one of the things that we did was we rigged up a ventilation hood, and that was all about 20 bucks.
Mm-hmm.
So all we used for that was a bell hood, which is basically just an expander between a 4-inch ventilation pipe and a 6-inch pipe. That way you had a way that was going to be large, and we used a mason jar as our container.
So it's really important afterwards that you don't heat up the sodium hydroxide because it's caustic and that actually eats in through glass.
So yeah, keep it in a fairly cool place to room temperature. I wouldn't suggest a refrigerator just because you don't want to worry about anything leaking out, any evaporates leaking out. Yeah, and cross-contamination.
Don't keep your chemicals where your food is.
Yeah, that's a general
You're going to kill someone.
Yeah. So we got our vent hood rigged up, and it actually slotted into our window, and we made sure everything was closed off and sealed up real nice so that all the gas would vent outside properly. And we're on a second floor on a fairly busy street, so there's a constant wind movement which would take the gas away and let it dissipate properly. And because we're on the second floor, it's a pretty tall second floor.
Yeah.
So we don't have to worry about
Anybody crossing the path.
Yeah.
And we're also working out of a pretty small mason jar. It's
Exactly.
not that much of a
Yeah.
reaction. It's just
So-
dangerous to do indoors.
Yes. which is why when we did it, we made sure that we went home for the night.
Yep.
But the main reason why we're doing that is to smooth our PLA prints.
Yep.
ABS is very easy. Just take acetone and smooths it.
Yep.
You're done.
But PLA is a lot tougher to do that with, and if we have a very reliable method of doing that, then we'll be able to get much smoother, much nicer prints.
And also chemistry is fun.
Exactly. The only problem was it didn't quite work.
Yeah.
We basically made really nice salt water.
Yes. If you need rust, it works really well.
Oh yeah, we proved that.
Put the rest down.
Let's see, we roasted down a zinc-coated pan, a stainless steel garnish cup.
Yep.
Stainless steel, probably because didn't you get it from like a dollar store or something?
Yeah, it was cheap.
Yeah.
So because we heated salt water in a metal container, it made it rust.
Yes.
Or a steel container, it made it rust. But even when we did that, we still made sure we had proper ventilation, and we did it in such a way that it could be contained and easily dissipated or diluted if need be, should something have happened. So just remember safety precautions. We're not saying do this at home. We're semi-trained professionals.
Definitely semi-trained.
Yes, semi. So we kind of know what we're doing, and we know how to take the proper safety precautions should anything happen. So that's our disclaimer for that.
Okay. So anyway, what happened after the night we showed up the next day is I had shown up that day, and the electrodes had been eaten through close to where we held the tape on to the copper wire that ran to the power supply. So that means that some point through the night, the graphite had broken off and it was no longer electrolyzing. So I think that's where it broke down, and that's probably where we ended up with that, either the graphite problem or the adhesive problem or whatever.
Yep. So it's something we're going to try, and we're going to make some changes to the process and go a little bit higher grade with it. You can get sodium hydroxide pellets, which are very, very powerful little guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically you just get the concentrated form afterwards, and then you mix it to whatever concentration you'd like.
Yeah. And we can get those fairly cheaply, but
Yay, Amazon.
yeah. But for me, I really like to make stuff, and in doing that, I learn more about how it works, which is one of the things I really like to do. And it's also one of those things too that we can take that information and we can pass it along to folks, and
Such as you.
viewers like you help us out.
Yeah, share this video with your friends.
Yes. So that's one of the things we tried earlier in the week. Also, last week, just after our first podcast went out, we had our 8th 3D printer meetup.
Yeah, we had our 3D printer meetup. About 25 people showed up.
Yep.
We're getting a decent little small community of people interested in 3D printing.
Yep.
So that's pretty fun.
Yeah, and if you're in the St. Louis area, please look us up on Meetup. It's and again, we can have a little link put right up in here, or there, and that'll take you to our Meetup page. And if you're interested in 3D printing at all in the St. Louis area or the Metro East, please feel free to come by. Arch Reactor is also open, and just kind of get a hold of us via YouTube, and we'll kind of let you know where to go. So the other thing that we're working on too is a 3D scanning platform. And we have one in the space that's another member's, but it's a little small for us and what we want to do with it. So we made a bigger one. And just like any good hackerspace does, we kind of cobbled together enough stuff and tools.
$40 for it right now.
Yeah. So, and I'll put up some images and kind of talk through it on my blog, which you can find below in the information set. So what we did was we basically just took a sheet of 1/2-inch BC plywood and made a jig for a router and cut a 3-foot diameter circle. And I used some very large wooden gears that I had made for a previous project. And so we have a wooden gear system, and that and our
Bass has one of the gears next to him.
So that's a small gear for the gear system that we use. And for those, you can use a gear generating program. When I initially designed these, it was an art piece, so it didn't really matter if they were fully correct. But what I did, when I designed those, I went through and I traced out a gear set, enlarged them, both to scale so they work properly, and I made sure that stuff was going to work well enough for what I made. So we have our platform, we have everything fairly well working. What we're using for our motor is an old screw gun, and we basically cut the thing down. It allows us to change the torque so that we don't burn the motor out completely.
Right.
And we're also going to be able to connect, or we actually did connect it to a PWM, or a pulse width modulator, so that we can control the speed with that, so that we don't have it just turning on and spinning like a tilt-a-whirl and throwing people off, which is fun,
Yeah.
but liability.
Yeah. Dang it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're really going in that direction because this guy right here,
Justin.
brought up a couple topics for us to start working on stuff like that.
So Justin, before we kind of get into the why we're going to be doing the 3D scanning stuff, like what's your background with digital design or any of this 3D printing kind of stuff?
Well, I'm a sculptor and I got into 3D modeling and 3D printing about 3 years ago. So, just looking for ways to do more with that and make 3D scanning more accessible, because right now it tends to be really expensive to outsource it. So if we can do that kind of stuff in-house, then it broadens the possibilities of what we can do with 3D sculpting and 3D printing.
And the program that we're going to be using is called Skinect, and it runs, you can use PC, Windows, same thing really. You can use Windows or Mac to run it, and you just basically hook your Kinect up to your computer. It's got a set of drivers that you can download for either if you're using a Windows Kinect or an Xbox Kinect, and from there it's just a matter of how powerful your graphics card is and how powerful your CPU is. And those two things kind of work together in order to help to generate the files. We have the full version here, and it allows us to do some really nice high-end models. And we can then take that and run it through a 3D printer and get some very nice models. And we're really excited to do more of that, which is what we have the platform for.
Yeah, and this guy does some really, really cool art.
Yep.
He's brought some pumpkins around. Well, I've seen some of his pumpkins are really his only physical stuff that I've seen. I've seen a couple of his digital stuff, prints.
Yeah.
But we can take some of his stuff he does by hand and just take the scanner and get a quick turnaround, and then he can send or give clients a good idea of what they will get if they order something like that from him.
Yep. And that's one of the really cool things, is being able to either take physical models of objects or people even, and go in and start to do the edits on those. The same thing if, for whatever reason, we wanted to go and scan a whole room, you can do that with Skinect, and then we'd be able to print that in parts so that we could have a model to show people when we go around to events for Hackerspace, or at the same time do that for whoever may be interested, really. So if like you have a new building that's opening up and you want a model of the actual space, we could go through, scan it, and even put some people in there. And that's one of the things too that we've been talking to the Microsoft store here in St. Louis about, is actually going out and doing an event with our tractor, so that we would scan people just kind of for the hell of it, and just be like, hey, look, this is what technology can do now. Yay!
Yeah.
So yeah, so those are our two things that we've kind of been working on this week. Yeah.
That's pretty
Unless
much
you got
it.
anything else?
Nothing new lately.
Okay. So in our last podcast, we talked a bit about the Peachy printer, which is a low-cost 3D printer. It's $100. The Kickstarter ended with somewhere around $650,000.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Or ridiculous.
And that was about $600,000 over the $50,000 that they wanted. And that uses a laser in UV cure resin. We also kind of mentioned the other version of that, which is a higher end model. And during the week I finally was able to find it, and it's called the Lumiform. And it's actually a really cool little printer. I looked it up. It's still got 7 days to go on Indiegogo, and they're way over their mark of only about $1,500. The cool thing with the LumiFold is that it uses extruded aluminum for its body, and instead of using a laser UV cure resin, it uses UV cure resin, but a DLP projection system. It's still very tiny.
It's a tiny B9C.
Pretty much, yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, so it's like he was saying, the B9C is another 3D printer that uses a DLP projector and UV cure resin.
We could build that right now
Probably, yeah.
with the open beam that we got.
Yeah,
Like literally, we could go after this podcast and build that.
yeah.
So the total kit is how much?
The total kit on Kickstarter is
$429. Oh, for the-
$390 is the kit on Kickstarter. The total for the kit once it goes out of Kickstarter is going to be $429.
So this has a really small build platform.
It does.
yeah.
So this would be mostly for
It's-
jewelers and people that want to do rings and stuff like
Exactly.
that.
It's going to be for people who want very small objects and want them at very high resolution.
And the G-Wiz people too.
Oh yeah, those two. But the cool thing with this would be to see how scalable the design itself is. And even with something this small, I'd really like to get it to the nuts and bolts and just build a little one and then see about expanding it out and seeing what kind of resolution you can get and how large are objects.
Well, let's
And-
see, last time you expanded something out, it ended up in 4.5 feet.
And
Yeah.
Yeah.
you say this as though it's an issue.
Well, no.
Does it say exactly what the build volume is on it?
It's quite small.
I've got it pulled up too. Max print volume is 90 by 90 by 90 millimeters.
Yeah.
So less than 90. So that's I was going to say it's less than 6 inches, but that's
9
less than.
centimeters?
Yeah.
I mean, you can, okay.
Yeah.
It's about 2.5, 3 inches in all directions.
So you
So
can, you can
this
do
size.
some pretty interesting miniature models and stuff just beyond
Yeah.
rings.
Oh yeah.
So, I know one of the local game shops we kind of talked to that was, they had one of their people here at the last meetup. They were really interested in seeing about doing miniatures for, to sell to clients and to also use, there's a program that they use to design some really, really cool looking models for doing miniature games, but also you can use those models in video games as well. So seeing something like that come to life, even if it's just a very small form, just like little tabletop miniatures, that'd be something that'd be really interesting to see with this.
I just saw what they're also selling a thing called a holodeck, which is like a 3-dimensional projection box. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Oh, and it tells you the layer progress. That's awesome. How many days?
There's 7 days left.
We got a bonus?
Yeah, that's true.
How long? I'm doing research right now.
Well, there's 7 days left, and you also have to figure that it'd probably be another 30 days to ship.
30?
Because that's usually around how long they tell you.
That's
But-
reasonable.
Yeah, and
Estimate, yeah.
I mean, 80 to $100 for either the small, the mini or the big one. That's
Yeah.
not so bad for the holodeck.
No.
so, yeah. It's actually, this print volume is actually probably about the same size as the original Cupcake CNC.
Yeah, I know it is.
Yeah.
It's like,
So does,
Yeah.
does it come with resin in the kit, or is that?
The resin is about $40, I believe.
yeah.
Yeah, don't quote me on that, but I believe it's around $40.
Resin's kind of expensive.
It
Yeah,
is.
that's the problem with the UV printers.
Yeah, which was actually one of the really cool things that the Peachy helped to solve that issue. By using the salt water and having the resin sit on top of that, you're not going to use as much in your vat.
Yeah, that's true.
Which
and you
was-
can possibly reuse it if you're careful about draining out the salt water afterwards.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was one of the things that was really cool that the Peachy did. And this is a version that uses a different mechanical method, basically, for the way that they're doing everything. So they're not using a laser, they're using a DLP projector. And there's differences between the two.
And it's just the microelectric machines
Yeah.
systems, which if you ever get a spare DLP, that's an HD one. That mirror module is actually really awesome. There's probably some things that you can look up about that. It's got if I remember right, they've got 780,000 to 1.25 million nano-sized mirrors in it that just move up and down, and that's how the LPs work, which obviously makes it really good for UV resist printing.
Yeah. Did you have anything else that you saw that was pretty interesting in tech news here lately?
So this shows a hologram
I'm
of
not
what's
sure.
remaining.
Yeah, so the holodeck looks like it projects the a bunch of cool stuff, which should be
You
fun.
need to get
So yeah, it's so apparently that's not one of the things that folks here in the space are talking about getting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So seeing that come to life would actually be really cool.
yeah.
Well, this,
I mean, you could do some of your smaller stuff in there, like your
Yeah.
rings and skulls that you've got.
So this is not the highest resolution, is it?
I don't.
We don't know.
Like that'd be one of the things that we'd have to do
We'd
a
have to
little bit
look
more
at it a
research
little
into.
if you folks are following along at home, Justin is referring to the Rabbit and the Indiegogo funding campaign.
Yeah.
I do know one other thing that was kind of interesting as far as like printing that happened recently was Print Providence, which is another 3D printer meetup group run by Matt Stoltz and a couple other folks at AS220. They got sponsored by Adafruit Industries
Oh, cool.
to do a prosthetic printing night.
Oh yeah, I was invited to that. It's a bit of a drive.
Yeah, I've done that drive twice.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
Oh, and is that where you did your
That's
CD?
where I was at the Fab Academy.
Yeah.
And it was actually, it's a great space, and from the pictures, they rearranged things a bit, and which is good. Means that they're changing, they're growing.
So it's good.
Yeah, but that was really cool to see 3D printing used for prosthetic limbs, and it's been done in the past, but really kind of bringing groups out, and they wrangled up as many printers as they could to come in and just start printing stuff out. And that was really cool and really awesome to see the community coming together and doing something like that.
Yeah, no, I've been trying to reach out to the amputee OT is a local girl.
Okay.
So if you ever seen her video, talks fairly matter of fact about what happened and how she's coping and how she deals with it because she's an occupational therapist. Or she does the physical therapy part, so she knows exactly what she's going through and how to help. So it'd be fun
Yeah.
to talk with her.
But if you want to see some really cool stuff with 3D printing, look up Matt Stultz. It's STULTZ. You can also find the article on Make Blog. So it's Make Magazine, and it's their blog. It's called Make the World Prosthetics Build Party. And it was really cool to see all the different types of prosthetics that they have. And if you look up on the MakerBot website, they should, or even on YouTube, there's a couple of videos of some guys who are doing 3D printing, 3D printed prosthetics for kids that have been born with deformed hands. And seeing how all those mechanical prosthetics work is really cool, especially when you, because it kind of transcends into the realm, or transitions into the realm of biomechanics.
Right.
Yes, magic. But biomechanics, and that's really a really cool principle to see how the biomechanical stuff is really coming along and really working in the 3D printing community. But you can also look at it too. It's like, well, animatronics. So it's low cost, easy to do animatronics. So I can only imagine that Walt Disney would be shitting himself right now.
Or
Oh,
John.
Disney has some amazing 3D printer work.
Oh yeah.
Or Jim Henson.
Their optical accelerometer is just brilliant.
Oh yeah.
And then they've also got a whole section on how to do light pipes and everything. I'd love to work there for like a week and steal all their ideas and go Vietnam and stuff.
Well, I'm sure they were like, maybe we should hire him. And then
No.
you said, and steal all their ideas. They went, maybe we're not going to hire him.
Yeah, I
So-
don't imagine that. But it'll be
Yeah.
fun.
I mean, the Mouse is is a good company to work for, especially creatively.
Yeah.
But I know even a lot of their physical stuff, they don't do a ton of stuff in house, and I could be wrong. but even just from what I'm aware of, they have a lot of companies that they work with and a lot of companies that they work with like constantly, but they're still not Disney in-house stuff. As far as I'm aware, I can be completely wrong.
They now have ILM and
Yeah.
all the good
I thought-
Lucas art stuff.
See, I thought ILM closed. Like they acquired ILM and said done.
Yeah, they got it.
Yeah,
So they took all the IP and everything else they worked on,
pretty much.
which means no more Grim Fandango or Curse of Monkey Island.
Grim Fandango and Curse of Monkey Island could fit into it. Like that's definitely Disney. That could be Disneyfied.
We see, I think-
1313's a little out there,
Yeah.
but I heard rumors that they're being picked up.
Really?
I think that's also why, though, that you're also seeing a resurgence as far as commercials and a push for Star Wars: The Old Republic.
Yeah,
Is because now that Disney owns the rights to Star Wars, they're like, money.
it's not a bad thing that Star Wars is picked up by Disney, but it's not a good thing either.
Yeah,
We've yet to see the results.
Yeah, and that'll be one of the interesting things that kind of comes about too. Speaking of entertainment industry and prototyping,
Awesome.
I learned here recently that one of my favorite genres, Halo, that Forward Unto Dawn, the Halo movie, actually used fully 3D printed parts in their in the movie. So if you look up the movie and you look at the Master Chief suit that they used, which was produced by Legacy Studios, which is formerly Stan Winston Studios.
Legacy's awesome.
Yeah, Legacy's the company that did all the Iron Man stuff. Pacific Rim. Most recently, they were noted for was the San Diego Comic-Con. They did the giant robot that was walking around and was kicked out of Comic-Con.
Really?
Yeah, they kicked it out. They wouldn't let the robot in.
It was scary. Like
So-
it was.
Yeah.
Well, Legacy,
That's
they did Iron Man and
Yep.
everything before when they were known as or called Stan Winston Studios.
Yeah,
So that goes back to everything from
Yeah.
the Terminator, Aliens,
Jurassic Park. Yeah,
um, Predator.
Yeah,
hundreds
like-
of movies.
all those like there's a ton of movies that Stan Winston Studios did, and they even have Stan Winston Stan Winston School of Character Arts is another thing that's still going in the name of Stan Winston, and it's really cool to see the stuff that they're still coming out with and still able to teach people, and they still work with Legacy Studios and get some of their folks and some of the other big names in the special effects industry to come in and teach streaming classes.
nice.
And I guess the name change came about because Stan Winston passed away a few years
Yes.
ago.
And I think that was probably the biggest reason. It was one of those things where it's like, I think the company as a whole wanted to move in some different directions, and it was probably away from the original idea of what Stan Winston wanted. And this is conjecture. So because of that, they probably went with a different name just for probably respect purposes.
Mm-hmm.
But in kind of going back, with Halo, with Forward Unto Dawn, all the parts were 3D printed, and what they did was they did a super high resolution scan of the actor who played the Master Chief, and the guy's name escapes me, but he's like 6 foot infinity. Like he's huge, like 6'8", I think is how tall this guy was. Which is actually how tall the Chief is before the armor.
Yeah, I don't need to get into.
Yeah. Anyway.
Lord, no.
Yeah. No. None of the lore tonight.
All right.
That would be a whole other set of podcasts.
We'd be here for hours.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Glorious.
they did a high.
So they did the super high detailed scan, and then they got a hold of Microsoft, and they were actually able to get the newest version of the Chief's armor, or backdated it a little bit in order to match the storyline.
Cool.
And they applied that directly to the scan, and then from there they were able to make changes to the armor and make it work in such a way that it was more biomechanically friendly. So like the arm plates, instead of having to go so far up the forearm, they cut them down a bit so that they can get full range of motion. And they were taking stuff that they learned from Pacific Rim and Iron Man and all those other kind of movies, where you would have a lot of people that had armor on. And so they took a lot of that stuff they learned, and it's like one of the jokes even in the books that they make is it's like, well, how can you tell that they're really good inside the suits? It's like they can shrug, and that's one of the things that they kind of worked on, because if you look at the actor who's playing him, There's shoulder plates here, and he can only really go like this high. So what they did was they went in, they edited them, changed the positioning on them so they can come up higher, they can still have full range of motion. And in doing that, then they get a better performance out of the actor because he's got a wider range of things that he can do, which is a good thing. But the printers that they use, I can only imagine how expensive those are. And especially with a chest plate that's going to be as big as that is, how big a machine they would have had.
Did they say what kind of printers they use?
They
I would guess Objet.
I'm betting that's probably what it was, but
One of the
Is it
big
new?
resin or SLS printers.
it wasn't resin. I believe it was SLS.
SLS?
Yeah, and for those who don't know, SLS is selective laser sintering, and that's a
There's a neat little thing on that that's coming up soon in 2014.
Yes.
yes.
All the patents on that are, well, not all of them, some of the patents on SLS are going out in 2014.
And
So
then-
we'll see a resurgence of machines that do SLS, or at least some new open source ones.
Mhm.
Yep.
It's just a new venue to walk down and, or a new avenue to walk down and just look at all the neat little toys you can now make.
And the thing that will be really interesting with that, once all the patents start to expire, is going to be seeing what the open source community really starts to do with that, and all these companies that currently produce 3D printers, if there's going to be more companies that pop up, or if some of these guys are going to adapt and bring in more stuff and have higher end models
A lot
of
of
their
the
printers.
smaller ones are getting bought out, the printer companies.
Yeah.
Like MakerBot is like the largest one that you can think of right now.
Yeah.
They got bought out for incredible amounts of money, but they deserve what that they got bought out, but I'm not happy that they got bought out.
Yeah. I mean, it was. I guess that would be kind of a new topic here. So it's one of those things that it's a big deal that MakerBot got bought out by was it Stratus?
Stratus.
Yeah. So MakerBot got bought out by Stratus. Well, MakerBot was like the big company that first brought 3D printing to the desktop arena, pretty much.
Pretty much like either started or researched the open source hardware stuff.
Yeah.
No,
No?
don't say that. You're gonna piss people off.
They-
You've got RepRap, who
Yeah.
started off with Adrian Boyer,
Mhm.
and then I think Bree and Zach and a bunch of other guys
Right.
were fucking excited about that. And then they were like, well, this is hard to do. And they had a laser cutter.
Mhm.
And instead of doing the RepRap, they laser cut it out and got it working.
And
And they're like, this is a business idea. They can go forward and go print and get
Yeah.
printers out there. So they were really just trying to evangelize printing so RepRaps can be used. RepRaps will be more easily obtained.
Mhm.
But they started off a whole new branch of printers. kind
Yeah.
of.
So like if you can find them out there as well. There's the family tree of 3D printers, and
Yeah.
you can kind of see where everything came from.
Um,
And I know MakerBot's pretty far down the line.
yeah, MakerBot's probably next to the Darwin.
Yeah, it's right up there with the birth of the species.
Yeah.
But
The cupcake.
yeah, the Cupcake CNC was actually a really cool machine, and I actually saw an article not too long ago. Somebody turned one into a laser engraver.
Yeah, so.
But that's another topic. The thing with MakerBot getting bought out, I think that was the logical progression, really. And it makes sense because you have a company that made 3D printing and made the word MakerBot a household name.
Yeah,
So like, we'll have people come to our meetups, and the first thing they go, they see these printers and all these other machines. Like, which one's a MakerBot? And we're like, we don't have those.
Yeah.
And it's because we're kind of snobby in a little bit, but
Okay.
it's also that MakerBot machines, I will say as well, are in the higher end of the price range, and a lot of the ones that we have come in are the home built and modified designs of Rostocks and DeltaBots.
They're the higher range of the price range and then the range of the printers.
Yes,
It's because they've got a brand name.
exactly.
They've supposedly got better tech support, but I haven't really done that in 4 years.
About,
I haven't
yeah.
done MakerBot tech support in 4 years.
When the first
But-
time they told you to go to RepRap forums?
No, they didn't.
They didn't? No.
No, they were good. I don't know how they are now. The reason why I don't like what they did is they went closed source after being open source for so long, and it really rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah.
Don't
You
do
know,
that. It's just you've committed so much of the community has helped them get to where they are, and they kind of screwed the community for the venture capitalists that gave them money. which I understand why they did it, but I'm not happy. And I'll
Yeah.
never buy another MakerBot product again.
But that's personal preference too. But it's still really cool to see what they did and how far they helped to push not just the 3D printing community, but the open source community. Because without a lot of the stuff that they did initially and the push for more 3D printers, which allowed people to make more things and try and think of more things to do, without that big push, we'd probably be set back several years in that technology still. And that's not to say we would, because it could have been somebody else who would have picked up the slack.
Probably.
But it's alternate reality at this point.
Yeah.
But
Cool.
it is.
Yeah.
You know, this,
Maybe Bruce would have jumped in and,
You never know.
because he, yeah.
And
isn't the point of most startups though is to declare IPO and sell?
Well, yeah, it wasn't
Good point.
aimed to do that. It was aimed to get printers out there.
yeah,
And then they found a way to make money.
Right.
And a couple people left the company and ideas changed and other people joined.
yeah,
Like, we've seen some of the best people from the printer community come into it, work on it, and then leave.
Huh.
So
Yeah,
they've
that
helped
would-
out a lot.
yeah.
And that would kind of rub everybody the wrong way with just somebody coming in and buying the whole thing, saying that now it's closed source.
Well, they closed sourced after the venture capitalism came in, and then after the venture capitalism came in, they got big enough, and then they got bought out by Strauss.
So was there any licensing conflict when they tried to go closed source after they did that?
No, what they did to close the GPLs, they developed their own code and drivers,
No.
driver board, so that it was no longer under GPL.
Gotcha.
So they are open source. They're compatible with all the license agreements that they have out there,
Gotcha. Okay.
and
Yeah.
no one's gonna probably take them to court.
No.
And the thing that kind of comes to mind is just a scene from Joan of Arc of all movies. Uh, the
Burning
one,
at the stake, huh?
the one with Mia Polovich, like that version. There's a scene when the French finally take these catapults that have been just pelting a castle for a while, and one of the Frenchmen gets up on the catapult and he just stands on. He's like, "This is mine." I kind of feel like the catapult was MakerBot and the Frenchman was just getting up on there, and that was kind of Stratus going, "This is mine now,
Yeah.
and I will pelt the world with 3D printers as I choose."
Well, and it really makes sense, because right
Yeah.
now they only have the $50,000 one, or that's it.
Yeah, the 50
And then
plus.
they bought MakerBot, now they've got 2.5 to 50 plus.
Yeah.
Now they've got
So
sub
they've got the
10,000, so
range.
it
Yeah.
can reach more people.
And
smaller.
especially since that's where the market is
Yeah.
at that lower range.
Because we all want a 3D printer
Someday.
someday.
Someday I'll have more than two.
Yeah, no, what I want to do is I want to get
Yeah.
specialized printers that can do things that other people can't.
Yeah.
So that, sure, they'll have, the standard little plastic one, but I'll be able to do electronics and stuff.
Yeah. Which will be cool. I think eventually, like the
Diamond Age.
Yeah. Like I think the end all be all is going to be when you have a system like they have from Iron Man, and it's just Jarvis, make this, and just all these machines that work together kind of.
First, you gotta make Jarvis.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Who knows? I'm sure we'll think of something.
Well, what is it? The Singularity is supposed to hit shortly, in the next few years.
Talking about the singularity is not worth my time.
Yeah, exactly.
Just work on the AI, work on the tech. Don't worry about the singularity. It'll come. You won't be able to do anything.
So yeah.
There's no way to prepare for it. That's why it's a singularity. You can't see beyond it.
So any other big tech news that you can think of, or?
Not that I can think of. I've been mostly focusing on getting all this stuff going.
Yeah.
Looking at CAM stuff for the
Yeah.
other project that we're working on.
Yeah. Which is
Fun stuff.
Yeah.
I'm keeping fun.
yeah. We have plenty of things in the works, and it's one of those things where eventually we'll be able to talk about them all. But for right now, it's like you work with people, and because you work with people, they don't always want the stuff that you're helping them with or doing with them put out in the open. And it's the nature of working with others.
Yeah.
Is you have to play well with others in order to work with others. So,
Sign a good NDA, do all that other stuff, and you're fine.
yeah. But I do know with the 3D printing and scanning stuff, one thing that's going to be really interesting is being able to go into a lot of video games and things like that, and actually being able to pull the models out.
Which is really easy, actually.
It is.
Yeah.
It's
But-
the approach of practical effects and digital effects combining, so
Yeah.
that you get the benefits of, hey, I want to see how this looks first, and I want to have a cheap-ass material that bits are cheap as hell. It's electricity and some basic framework, and then you put it into the real world and hand it to someone, and they know what to do with it.
Yeah, and I've got a friend who one of the things that he's been doing is he has another friend of his that will go in and pull files for him. And well, I think the last thing he did was the Skyrim bow. And he pulled the file out on that, and then he went into Cinema 4D and actually did the mesh modeling on top of the image and did the whole thing out. From there, he took it to his CNC machine, carved out of foam.
Cool.
So then with that, he can actually just carve the whole thing out, put a block around it, and then he'd be able to do the mold straight off of that. So he's basically carving out the positive, molding the negative, and then pouring resin in, gluing the two pieces together. So, or even depending on if he does it right, he can even just put the whole thing together.
Right.
So that'd be the cool part. But doing stuff like that, even as far as like auto parts or some of the prosthetics, or even prosthetic replacements. If you look at it like somebody loses a portion of their face, we can scan one side of their face that's still fine, mirror that image, and then print them a prosthetic to fill in the gap.
Yeah.
So
Where digital artists become
yeah,
life enhancers.
exactly.
Like, though they enhance your life other ways, but I mean, like, the quality of life enhancement from getting an actual face someone can look you in the eye with is
Yeah,
It's quite a good.
a little bit more than, you know, a sculpture.
it's
Well,
going.
that's hard to quantify.
It's like we're going full Ghost in the Shell.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Almost.
If you don't know what Ghost in the Shell is, check that
it's
out.
awesome.
Great series. Great series, great movie.
Movies.
I think the first one.
Decent
was
bit of
better.
philosophy. I like
yeah.
transhuman stuff.
So yeah. And where are we sitting at on time? I just want to know.
Oh yeah, sorry, I was not paying attention. We're sitting at 42 minutes.
42 minutes. Say,
Nice call.
do you gentlemen have anything else to add? Or so it looks like this week we might be ending here a little bit short, just because we're a little light on tech news.
Yeah.
So from STL in the STL, my name is Sky Rocca,
I'm Ryan.
Basilis or Basil?
and joining us tonight it was
Justin.
And it was great for you guys to take a look at the podcast. Check us out again next week. We'll have more tech news for you. We'll have more theory, more transhumanism, and just about everything you can imagine as far as digital design, prototyping, and whatnot. Thank you. Have a good night.
All right, that's done.
You want to know what